Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're doing something a little different today. We're diving into the public reaction to Donald Trump's recent address to Congress,
Oh, interesting.
but not through uh, the usual lens of news articles or opinion polls.
Okay.
Our source material today, Google searches.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're looking at what people were actually typing into Google during and right after the speech,
Fascinating.
to get a raw, unfiltered glimpse into what was on everyone's minds, what captivated the public's attention. I think we found some intriguing patterns, some unexpected insights, so let's unpack this.
Absolutely.
Right off the bat, we saw an absolutely massive volume of searches directly related to Trump himself. Trump speech, Donald Trump, Trump address, you name it.
Right.
I mean, you'd think that years after leaving office, the focus might have shifted a little bit, but these searches really suggest he still holds a powerful grip on the public consciousness. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, this volume is really significant, even considering his name recognition. We analyzed over 10 million searches from that night, and Trump-related terms consistently topped the charts,
Wow.
spiking by almost 400% compared to the previous week.
That's huge.
So yeah, this suggests an enduring fascination with Trump as a figure, even years after his presidency.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about his name. We also saw a huge spike in searches related to fact-checking.
Oh, interesting.
Fact-check Trump speech, Trump fact-check, even live fact-checking Trump.
Wow.
Clearly, people weren't just passively listening. They were actively trying to verify or challenge what they were hearing in real time.
It makes sense, right? This surge in fact-checking searches actually reflect a growing trend of media skepticism.
Totally.
In a world of information overload, people are turning to independent sources to validate what they see and hear, especially when it comes to politically charged events.
Right. So instead of just accepting what they're being told, people are taking the initiative to dig deeper and form their own conclusions.
Exactly. They're engaging in critical thinking, which is essential in today's complex media landscape.
I love that.
Now, moving from these broader themes, let's look at some specific content curiosities that emerged from the search data.
Yeah, some of these were really interesting.
Absolutely.
One that stood out was, what is woke? Woke meaning. Trump used this term quite a bit during his address, but it seems like a portion of the audience wasn't entirely familiar with it.
Right. This could point to a few things. Maybe it's a generational divide, with younger viewers being more familiar with the term than older generations.
Right.
Or it could reflect a shift in political language that some people found jarring or confusing.
It's a good reminder that even seemingly common terms can have different meanings and interpretations, right, across various groups.
Absolutely. And it highlights how language can be used strategically
Mm-hmm.
to appeal to certain demographics or even to create division.
Oh, for sure. We also noticed a bunch of searches for specific individuals: Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, Rosa DeLauro, all prominent figures in Congress, some known to oppose Trump. It seems like people were interested in their reactions to the speech.
It's as if they were looking for cues, on how to interpret the speech,
Yeah.
or perhaps seeking validation for their own reactions. The absence of certain names is also interesting, potentially indicating perceived political alliances, or just lack of public interest in certain individuals.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about something a little different. We saw a surprising number of searches related to the logistics of this speech itself. Trump's speech time, State of the Union time, how long was Trump's speech?
Huh, interesting.
People were clearly planning their viewing experience.
This is intriguing considering the possible decline in traditional TV viewership.
Right.
It suggests that people might have been seeking out alternative ways to watch the speech, whether through online streaming or social media clips.
It really speaks volumes about the changing media landscape and how people consume news and information in a more fragmented way.
For sure.
But before we get too deep into that, let's look at another interesting trend that popped up in our search data. We saw quite a few searches for specific news outlets: Fox News, CNN, NPR, Newsmax, the list goes on.
Right.
It seems like people were actively seeking out information from sources known to align with their existing perspectives. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a clear indication of how our information consumption is becoming increasingly personalized
Yeah.
and, unfortunately, often reinforces existing biases.
Yeah.
We naturally gravitate towards sources that validate our worldview,
Yeah.
which can lead to echo chambers
Yeah.
and make it really difficult to engage with alternative viewpoints.
So it's not just about access to information anymore.
Right.
It's about the specific sources we choose to trust and rely on.
Exactly. And this brings up an important point, for all of us to consider. How do you choose your news sources?
It's a great question.
Do you actively seek out diverse perspectives? Or do you find yourself mostly sticking to familiar outlets, the ones that just reinforce your existing beliefs?
That's a great question for everyone to ponder. But before we get too deep into that, let's shift our attention to some of the more unexpected search terms that emerged from our analysis. These were less frequent, but they offer some fascinating insights into specific policy points that resonated with certain viewers.
Yes, these unexpected nuggets, as you call them, can reveal a lot. The underlying anxieties, interests, and priorities of different segments of the population.
One example that caught our eye was the phrase drill baby drill, which saw a noticeable spike during and after the speech.
Interesting.
This slogan is often associated with increased domestic oil production.
Right.
And it suggests that energy policy and economic concerns were on the minds of some viewers.
It's fascinating to consider why this particular topic resonated and how it might connect to broader anxieties, about things like inflation, energy independence, and the environment.
Right. And then we have searches like Trump Social Security, which suggests concerns about the future of social safety net programs under a potential second Trump term.
This highlights how specific policy pronouncements can have a big impact.
Yeah.
Even those delivered in passing, they can trigger a wave of anxiety and information-seeking behavior among certain demographics.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that even in a politically charged environment, people are still deeply concerned about practical, everyday issues. The ones that directly affect their lives?
Now, in addition to these policy-related searches, we also saw a cluster of searches hinting at potential drama during the address itself. Things like who was just removed from the State of the Union or who just got escorted out.
Yes. These searches suggest that something happened during the speech, something viewers found noteworthy enough to immediately Google. But the searches themselves don't tell us what actually happened.
Exactly, and that's where the need for critical thinking becomes even more crucial.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in speculation and rumors, especially in the fast-paced world of online media. But we need to be careful not to jump to conclusions or accept every headline at face value. So let's dive into how we can navigate this information landscape effectively and avoid falling prey to misinformation. It's like being a detective,
Oh, I like that.
in a way,
Yeah.
gathering clues, evaluating evidence,
Right.
and trying to piece together the most accurate picture possible.
I love that analogy. And just like a good detective, we have to be aware of our own biases.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Those preconceived notions that we bring to the table
Yeah.
can really cloud our judgment,
Definitely.
especially when we're dealing with something as emotionally charged as politics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We all have biases, whether we're conscious of them or not. And it's crucial to acknowledge those biases and try to mitigate their influence, on how we process information.
It's tough, though.
It is.
Our brains are naturally wired to seek out information that confirms what we already believe, even if it means overlooking or dismissing evidence that challenges our views.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's not impossible to break out of that pattern.
Yeah.
It takes effort and a willingness to challenge our own assumptions. One helpful strategy is to actively seek out viewpoints that differ from our own.
I like that.
Expose ourselves to different perspectives, even if they make us uncomfortable. It's about expanding our understanding, not necessarily changing our minds.
That's a good point. It's so interesting how we've been talking about this in the context of politics. But it really applies to all areas of our lives.
It does.
Doesn't it? From the news we consume to the relationships we form, we're constantly filtering information through our own unique set of biases.
It's a great point. It highlights the importance of self-awareness and critical thinking in all aspects of life. Recognizing our biases is the first step toward becoming more open-minded and objective in our decision-making.
So beyond fact-checking, seeking diverse perspectives, and being aware of our biases, what other advice would you give to our listeners? The ones who want to be more informed and engaged citizens in this digital age.
Well, I would say be curious. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to challenge the status quo, to dig deeper into the issues that matter to you.
Yeah.
And just as importantly, don't be afraid to change your mind. When presented with new evidence or well-reasoned argument, flexibility and a willingness to learn are hallmarks of a critical thinker.
Those are such great points. Curiosity and open-mindedness are so essential for growth and understanding.
And I would add, be patient. Forming informed opinions takes time and effort. Don't expect to have all the answers right away.
Mhm.
Be willing to grapple with complex issues, to sit with discomfort, and to engage in respectful dialogue with those who hold different views. True understanding rarely comes easy.
You're so right. This has been such a fascinating deep dive, and I feel like we've learned so much from just analyzing these Google searches. It's incredible how much they reveal about public sentiment and
Hmm.
how people engage with information in today's digital world.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise.
And I hope our listeners are finding this conversation as thought-provoking as we are.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier. We talked about how these searches can highlight potential blind spots in public discourse.
Right.
What isn't being searched for? What topics or perspectives are being overlooked or silenced?
That's an incredibly important point. While these search terms can provide valuable insights, they also represent a limited sample of public interest. There are undoubtedly countless perspectives and concerns that aren't reflected in these searches, perhaps due to lack of awareness, access to information, or even fear of expressing certain viewpoints.
So, how do we ensure that those voices are heard and that our collective understanding of the world is as complete and nuanced as possible? What can we do to broaden the conversation and shed light on those perspectives that might be getting lost in the noise?
Well, I think it starts with recognizing that our individual perspectives are inherently limited.
Yeah.
We each bring our own experiences, biases, and blind spots to the table. And it's through actively seeking out diverse viewpoints, listening with empathy, and engaging in respectful dialogue that we can begin to bridge those gaps in understanding.
So it's not just about consuming information, it's about actively seeking out perspectives that challenge our own assumptions and force us to confront our own biases.
Exactly. It's about cultivating intellectual humility
Yeah.
and recognizing that there's always more to learn, even from those we might disagree with.
That's such a powerful message, and it makes me think about the role of technology in all of this. On the one hand, it can create these echo chambers where we're constantly bombarded with information that reinforces our existing beliefs. But on the other hand, it also has the potential to connect us with people and ideas we might never have encountered otherwise.
That's right. It's ultimately up to us how we choose to use these tools.
Right.
We can either let them reinforce our biases and divide us further, or we can leverage them to expand our horizons and engage in more meaningful conversations across ideological divides.
So it's not just about the technology itself, it's about our intentions and how we choose to engage with it.
Exactly. It's about using technology as a tool for connection and understanding, rather than a weapon for division and polarization.
I love that. And it brings us to our final thought-provoking question for all of you listening out there. We've seen how Google searches can offer a glimpse into the collective consciousness, highlighting what captures public attention and what might be slipping through the cracks. But what about the searches that aren't being made? What topics or perspectives are being overlooked or silenced? And what can we, individually and collectively, do to ensure that those voices are heard and that our understanding of the world is as comprehensive and nuanced as possible?
That's a powerful question to ponder. And it speaks to the importance of not only consuming information, but also actively shaping the discourse. It's about recognizing that each of us has a role to play in creating a more informed, equitable, and just society.
It's like we're all puzzle pieces. And it's through these conversations,
Yeah.
through these searches that we start to fit together and see the bigger picture.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. And it really underscores the importance of approaching these conversations, with humility
Yeah.
and a genuine desire to understand, not just to be heard.
So much of what we've talked about today has revolved around this idea of being active participants in our information consumption.
Right.
It's not enough to just passively scroll through headlines or accept the first version of events we encounter. We have to dig deeper, challenge our assumptions, and be willing to change our minds.
Absolutely. Critical thinking isn't just a skill, it's a mindset. It's about approaching information with a healthy dose of skepticism, curiosity, and a willingness to grapple with complexity.
And it's something we can all cultivate regardless of our background or political beliefs.
That's right. It's a lifelong process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And it's essential for navigating the ever-evolving information landscape.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways.
Okay.
First, remember that the information we consume is always filtered through our own biases and perspectives.
Yeah.
Being aware of those biases is the first step toward becoming more objective and open-minded.
Second, don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions. Seek out diverse viewpoints, even those that make you uncomfortable. It's through engaging with different perspectives that we broaden our understanding and grow as individuals.
And finally, be curious. Ask questions. Dig deeper. Don't be satisfied with surface-level explanations. The more we understand about the world around us, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions and create positive change.
Well said. And remember, this deep dive into Google searches is just one lens through which we can view the complexities of public opinion and information consumption. There are countless other perspectives to explore, and it's through embracing that diversity of thought that we can build a more informed, equitable, and just society.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Google searches and what they reveal about the public's reaction to Donald Trump's recent address to Congress. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those searches going.